Joining me now to discuss it all, CBS News senior political editor Steve Chaggaris, as well as Democratic strategist, campaign director at the Center for American Progress Action Fund, Emily Tisch Sussman. And it's good to have you both. And Emily, I do want to ask you, where are the 13% coming from? I mean, I really, 82% of anything's always obviously a big number 4 days out. But that word disgusted, it speaks to an interesting idea, if nothing else, in an election that you have all sat there and told me for months is going to be a turnout election. You need excitement and enthusiasm. So how to make this all fit together?
Yeah, I don't think there's a person out there who's not at least exhausted by this election. Look, working in Washington, people are always asking me how similar it is to House of Cards. And I say, oh, it's not like House of Cards. I feel like we're in it now. Like, we have hit.
So then how effective is strategy for Hillary Clinton specifically to be doing what she is doing, which is, in a way, echoing and mirroring her GOP rival in making this an aggressive referendum on him?
Well, you can't ignore him. You can't ignore that he's the candidate. And I actually think that she's done maybe more pro-Hillary than she would have to, because you could run an entire campaign just anti-Trump and get people out. Look, people hate negative ads, but the reason people run negative ads is because they work. When people are motivated by fear, it's a very motivating factor to get out there. You could run a full anti-Trump campaign and be fine. She has been doing a lot of pro-Hillary. I think we saw that starting with the Democratic National Convention, where the storyline across the board was her history, her commitment, her service. And she continues to run positive ads and positive storylines about her history, so people actually know who she is and don't just see her as, a muddled media campaign story.
And yet, do we then see, based on media buys in states that have gone historically blue, concern about a positive message and its impact?
Well, I think you got to get them out across the board. Like, all of the math assumes, like, every, pathway to 270 assumes that she shores up every one of these states and then gets more some. So, you have to make sure they're all there before you move forward.
Steve, they're both going to a lot of places. They will both be spending a lot of time, having spent it in Florida, in Pennsylvania, and Ohio as well. Who then, and we see numbers that suggest about 8% of the electorate may still be undecided. Who are they both looking for in those states right now?
Well, they're really looking for their own people to get out and vote, right? So you've got Donald Trump going to places to make sure that his voters go out to vote. We talk about turnout. Turnout is important. He's also going to go to places like Michigan to try to talk to people out there, people who might have questions about Hillary Clinton, people who might not be happy with how the country is going.
Enough people to make it go red.
Well, that's what they're hoping,
yeah.
Right? And if you take a state like Michigan, that opens up a lot more avenues to 270 for Donald Trump than if you don't take Michigan. And so that's why you're seeing him in a place like that. And for Hillary Clinton, she wants to make sure that people who traditionally vote Democrat or people who voted for Barack Obama in 2008, 2012, African Americans, for instance, there's a reason why they're going to Philadelphia. We're talking about Mr. and Mrs. Obama and Mr. and Mrs. Clinton will be there together the day before the election in Philadelphia. Why? African American vote. Barack Obama won in Philadelphia by such a large margin that he effectively made the rest of the state unwinnable for Mitt Romney. So that's the idea for Hillary Clinton this time around.
And that Pennsylvania is one of the only battleground states where almost everyone votes on election day.
That's right.
So putting that big
going at the last minute. Yep. But they've been, so we looked this up. Between the Clintons, the Obamas, Kaine, and Biden, 8 visits to Philadelphia proper since the beginning of September. So they're not kidding around about Philadelphia itself. You think, oh, it's a city, it's traditionally blue. Why do you go there? Well, it's to drum up those numbers, get enough people to vote and out to vote for that Democrat that you put the rest of the state out of play.
So, Emily, when we talk about the Obama coalition, we talk about two things, really. We talk about the demographic makeup of it and the numbers of those demographics that do turn out. So in this turnout election, how confident is the campaign, certainly as it has seen early voting to this point, that not just all different sorts of folks are showing up, but enough of them are showing up?
They have been showing up in record numbers, which is good. But that actually is why the early vote is so important. Because when we talk about the Obama coalition, it's people that can have difficulty getting to the polling place on election day. It's young people. It's people that work long hours. It's working parents that may not be able to get childcare. It's people that may have elderly or physical disabilities that can't stand on line for a long time. So that's why it is so important to get that, to make that really, really strong early vote push, I think in a way that we haven't seen before.
And you mentioned, Steve, basically the entire executive branch has been out on the stump for Hillary Clinton. How effective are the messages, not just the messages themselves, but who is delivering them? When you consider, meanwhile, that in terms of lawmakers, we have not seen any significant lawmaker of any stripe out there on the stump for Donald Trump. Well,
you look at the advantage that Hillary Clinton has by putting out, for instance, both of the Obamas. And you look at both of the Obamas and their approval ratings, north of 50%. Michelle Obama's even higher than that. You want those kind of people out there speaking on your behalf, especially when your approval ratings are way south of 50%, right? So they're going out there not only touting Hillary Clinton and insisting that not only is she the right person to be president, but also at the same time taking shots at the other guy. Again, and you talk about the negative campaigning earlier. Why wouldn't you go after your opponent if your opponent's negatives are through the roof? And that's what Donald Trump's people are saying about Hillary Clinton. It's what Hillary Clinton and the Obamas are saying about Donald Trump. Go after him. It's a way to paint. People understand that because so many people don't like him and her. And so, Emily, I want to ask you, and I want to be in Pennsylvania for an interesting choice yesterday made by the Trump campaign. We had not heard from Melania Trump since the Republican National Convention. She gave a second speech yesterday, and having made it clear that she's uncomfortable in the setting and in the environment, and decides to deliver a speech, the thrust of which was cyberbullying is a bad thing. We've become too mean as a people, and it all needs to stop. 5 days out when it was delivered, it seems a curious message from a curious messenger, and perhaps something of a missed opportunity, or is there something I'm missing?
If you're missing it, I'm missing it. There are a lot of things I don't understand about the Trump campaign. This would probably have to be number one. I mean, he had been promising that she was going to go out on the trail and give this large immigration speech. He's been saying that ever since the Republican National Convention, when she gave a partly plagiarized speech from Michelle Obama. So when they actually had announced that Melania was going to be giving a speech, I thought the day had come. We were going to give her big speech. To focus in on cyberbullying, it was the strangest choice I can possibly imagine. I think the only thing that would match it was the fact that yesterday Trump actually said during a speech, to himself, don't go off message.
Yeah, it was another curious moment. Yes.
I think part of the strategy there, though, is where she was, first of all, was in the Philadelphia suburbs. One of the reasons why they sent Melania there is because Donald Trump is underperforming among white suburban women, right? So you send your wife out there.
But there are specific reasons for that, Steve. And to that end, she didn't speak to those specific reasons.
But I mean, the idea, I think, is cyberbullying is something maybe, it doesn't fit the narrative of the Trump campaign and where it's gone during this. That's why it seems so odd. But the message, they think that's probably a message that women would like to hear coming from a campaign. It doesn't necessarily fit, but it's the effort, right? And they hope that at the last minute, that effort might sway some of these suburban women to vote for Donald Trump. It seems like a bit.
It's the best we've got.
When we talk a lot about Hail Marys in this campaign. That one is the ball is
just
probably doesn't even get anywhere close.
Keep going.
Doesn't get close to the end zone.
It just attracts more conversation about Trump and the cyberbullying. Nobody wants people talking about it.
It also speaks perhaps to a specific environment within the Trump campaign. I want to ask you, Emily, about some reporting by our Major Garrett that the campaign has since spoken to about the idea of the hidden Trump vote and what it means. And they see in telling Major essentially a hidden 5%, be they a silent majority, be they reluctant GOP voters, and then people who just want to see what happens if Donald Trump wins. But 5% is a big swing. In battleground state after battleground state, these things have all tightened. These things are all narrowing. What's the level of concern within the Clinton campaign that maybe, what if all these polls are wrong?
I think this hidden voter is turning out to look like a lot of the Trump promises about where his electorate will be. He's going to do amazing, or what are his words? Huge with African Americans, huge with Latinos. He's going to win California, win New York. I think it's turning out to be another one of those big Trump promises. But the Clinton campaign, I personally think that this entire campaign season has been very difficult to poll. And it's very difficult to see, I think more so than in past years, to figure out who likely voters are. We think we've got a lot of, good traditional tactics, but there's definitely a question for an element of surprise. And so you do have to really nail down every vote.
We've spoken about it. Is there, as we now see these numbers by the day, Steve, it today really did feel like, from the major newspapers, certainly of record, the day to drop the what if scenario. Like, what if, like, here's the path. It may not actually be as needle threading as a lot of people might think it is. It might come down to New Hampshire, flipping 269 apiece, and it goes to the House. So have your views changed about that margin of error?
The what if scenario, you gotta, sure. I mean, the numbers are tightening. Maybe, he does have paths to 270. They're a lot fewer, and it's a lot narrower path than Hillary Clinton's. To say that I'm not trusting the polling at this point, to say there's going to be all these voters that are going to show up that we haven't seen or heard about, I'm not sure I believe that. Republicans will insist that their organization and data and ground game is better than people are giving them credit for. They're building it not just for Trump, but for all of their candidates, and they insist they have an amazing program, and they're finding voters that we might not be talking to, and so that's what they say. So we'll see what happens. But, let's also remember that in 2012, the polls in some of these places showed Mitt Romney up or closer to Barack Obama, and they were not that close. And so the optimism on the Republicans' part, I say let's just wait till Tuesday and prove it to us, because traditionally, I don't know. I mean, it just doesn't seem that I'm just not going to go out there and say that these voters exist if we haven't seen them to this point. We didn't see them in the primaries, and we still haven't really seen them. So we'll see.
I mean, I think it's a tough thing for Republicans running the ground game and running the targeting as opposed to the Trump campaign doing their own, is because a lot of Republican voters and down-ticket Republican voters are not the same as Trump voters. So I think it does make it difficult for both the Senate candidates, House candidates, and all the way down the ballot, and the Trump campaign, if they're using the same voter files and the same ground game.
And the key is finding these hidden voters, if they exist, in the right places. I mean, you've got to find these people in Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania.
Well, and in a turnout election,
right.
Turn them out. And let's be honest, they've been a silent majority, low propensity voters for reasons. They are hard to turn out.
These are the lowest propensity voters we're talking about.
You're sticking around forever. I want to give you get you out of here on this one, Emily. 90 some odd hours out. What will we hear from Hillary Clinton as she makes the final argument?
I think she's going to keep making the positive case for Clinton as opposed to the negative case for Trump. She has to be the president on November 9th, on November 10th. She has to be the president for the next 4 years. And in a very divided country, there's no question about that. There can be some ways to work within, and we may say that it's already so fractured that she can actually find a way forward. And so I think she needs to make that case.
So there's going to be a November 9th for better and worse. Steve, Emily, we both appreciate your time.
Thank you.